Hi, everybody. The hot topic for today, notice I'm wearing red, is because aging adults and people often ask me, well, Pamela, who should I appoint as my agent under power of attorney? And that really is a great question. It's an amazing question because while it may seem pretty simple and pretty obvious, it's actually a very serious decision that will impact your life at one point or another eventually. If you cannot make decisions on your own, or if you need help from other people to support your caregiving journey. I'm Pamela D Wilson. I am a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker of more than 20 years. Please like this video, follow my channel, and comment below so that more people can find these webinars and my 800 plus videos here on my YouTube channel. Your participation really does help other people, and it really does make a difference. So, in this webinar today, we're going to talk about the beneficial skills for the person that you might want to appoint as your power of attorney. Because if you're going to appoint somebody to act as an agent under medical or financial power of attorney, it's really helpful to know what kind of background and what skills would benefit you that if this person who accepts has will make both of your lives much easier. Because sometimes people accept an agent responsibility, they have absolutely no idea what they're getting into, and later they change their mind. That's a problem for you if you don't have a successor agent appointed. Or it's a problem for you if you have dementia and there was no successor agent appointed and they don't want to do it and there's nobody else who's stepping up. The other thing is, know that if you've appointed an agent under power of attorney and you're not happy with how they are helping you, you can always cancel that appointment, end it, and appoint somebody else. There's no reason to stay with an agent under power of attorney who's not doing his job or who is doing things you don't want them to do or taking over your decision-making power. Because as long as you can still make decisions, they do not have absolute power over your life. And many agents under power of attorney think that they do. Not true. So the big question here is, who can you trust? If you are the person completing a power of attorney document, appointing an agent, or doing estate planning or anything else, it's really important to discuss the responsibility with the person that you want to or choose to appoint so that A, you know if you can trust them, and B, do they have the skills? Will they agree to do this if it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now or 20 years from now? Or what happens if you name them and they don't agree? What are you going to do, right? So each appointment, both the financial over here and the medical over here, benefit from having special skills to ensure that what you want happens, that your wishes are followed out. So we're going to talk about these skills. We're also going to talk about family makeup and background, because sometimes appointing a family member to act as power of attorney may be the perfect option for you. Or honestly, it may be the wrong option, and it may turn out to be this nightmare that you never imagined would happen. Because honestly, there are no perfect family members. There's no perfect people out there. There are a lot of good people. Just as on the opposite, there are a lot of bad people. So we're going to talk about skills for the financial power of attorney, skills for the medical power of attorney. Should you choose somebody in your family? Yes or no? And what are the other options of appointing a professional fiduciary? So let's talk first about the financial power of attorney and considerations for appointing the right person. Now, if you are the person making the appointment, or if it's your parent or somebody else, everybody works hard during their lifetimes, right? We all try to save money and be responsible and do the right thing. However much money is there, very little bit, a lot, right? Savings and investments. It belongs to the person who's appointing you. It's not your money as the agent. It doesn't serve as an inheritance for greedy family members if those funds are needed for somebody's care. Money goes first for the care of the person. Then if there's anything left when they pass away, it can go where they wanted it to go to in their will. If not, then they deserved all of the care that that money provided. So when you're thinking of a person to appoint as financial power of attorney, I never recommend that aging parents turn over their hard-earned money to anybody, an adult child, a family member who could not manage their money during their lifetime, or who was not responsible, who did not hold down a job, because those funds may not be used to pay for your care when you need it. You have to honestly ask yourself these questions. So another example, any parent who financially subsidizes a grown child who can get out there and work, that's not a good person to appoint either. I cannot tell you how many situations I've seen where there is a 50-year-old child or a 60-year-old child or a 30-year-old child who's living in the basement of a parent, doing absolutely nothing, being financially supported by the parent, not even caring for them. They're just living in the house and doing nothing. That is not the person that you want to appoint. And add to that, you're going to need to find a way to get that person out of your house, because if you ever need to move, you don't want to have your agent under power of attorney fighting with your children or with their brother or sister about getting a job and getting out of the house and being self-supporting. Don't enable your children not to be able to take care of themselves. Many parents do this. It's important. Statistics indicate that the majority of elder abuse comes from these children who are financially dependent on their parents. It's from family perpetrators, and parents, of course, do not want to file lawsuits. And by then, the money's already gone. It's not like these children are going to earn money to be able to pay that back, right? So what happens is, in many situations, adult children who are appointed as the agent are extremely tempted to use their parents' money to pay their bills or take a vacation or take out loans that, of course, they promise to repay, but rarely ever happens. Again, parents' money, the person you're appointed for, their money should be paid for their care, for their well-being, for everything for them. They earned it. You as the agent did not. You as the children did not. You as the people who want to inherit that money did not earn it. Go earn your own money. So when you think of financial power of attorney, you got to think about what you have as assets. So money. So the role of the financial power of attorney and the skills that they need depend on the value and the type of assets. So if somebody has $100,000 versus $20 million, you can imagine those responsibilities are vastly different. If the assets are limited to maybe a home and a bank account, much less complicated than 5 bank accounts and 5 investment accounts and multiple properties and land and trust documents and company ownership, right? 2 different worlds, 2 different skill sets. So depending on the degree of those financial assets, a certain amount of familiarity with investments and banks and money management, very good for a power of attorney. You don't want to trust your financial life and your future life and your care to somebody who has no experience with this, or some beginner who might screw up and do something so that you lose your money, right? You also want somebody who has a similar life philosophy or a similar financial philosophy, or who will follow your philosophy even if they disagree. So if you're conservative with money, you want somebody who's going to be conservative with your money, right? Not somebody who's going to go out and buy lottery tickets and be risky and go to casinos and gamble money, right? Now, this all gets a little more complicated if you're ever diagnosed with a cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's disease or dementia, because then you're more vulnerable to these people because you're not going to know if they're misusing your money or not. Again, that's where in a prior webinar I talked about a power of attorney agent protector or a guardian protector or a conservator protector, just somebody to provide oversight to make sure that whoever's appointed is doing what you would have wanted to have done. Because honestly, I've seen so many situations where adult children, they're more interested in their parents' money than committing to care for their parent. Let's put mom or dad in a nursing home, they'll die. We want to inherit this money, so the sooner mom and dad die, the better, we'll get more money, right? Children can feel really entitled to their parents' money. Those are not the children that you want to appoint for any of these roles. So let's say you're interviewing somebody about financial power of attorney. Here's some questions to ask. Is that person that you're considering willing to walk you through scenarios of how they manage their personal accounts, or if they've ever done this for a family member? If they're a professional, will they give you references of people who they've managed accounts for so you can talk to those people? Also ask about the average value of accounts. So if it's your kids, and I know this is personal information, but are they managing $100,000 or $1 million? If it's a professional, are they managing $250,000 or $5 million? It does make a difference. There's other questions that you want to ask about. Are you going to be willing to provide financial reports monthly? How are you going to pay bills? Talk about investment strategies. All of this type of information is important because really your money is not an area where anybody can afford to take risks of appointing somebody who becomes that nightmare financial power of attorney, especially if you have a cognitive impairment and there's nothing that you can do. So now let's talk about the healthcare side, which is medical power of attorney. Medical power of attorney is really the area where advocacy skills are essential, where they are really needed because there's a lot of bumps in the road. There's a lot of roadblocks. There's a lot of unexpected stuff that doctors and healthcare professionals really don't tell people unless you get in and ask and you get into the weeds about the details. The unexpected happens all the time. Medical problems happen. You may not believe this or know this yet if you haven't run into this, but healthcare professionals can be very unhelpful and even disagreeable. Making sure that a loved one receives the best care can feel like a daily battle for that medical power of attorney. It can be really hard. So becoming a power of attorney, especially for healthcare, is more than just being involved with the person that you care for, the principal, right? You're taking on everybody else who comes into their life. Nurses, doctors, physical therapists, nursing homes, hospital staff, insurance companies, life insurance, everything, their home, where they live, all of that, which is why strong advocacy skills are really needed to speak up, if necessary, against medical systems and people that honestly can be very uncaring and very insensitive to the needs of the person that you're caring for. They can even be rude to you, the agent or the caregiver. So do you, or does the person that you want to appoint have the skills to advocate and coordinate and stand up and fight for what is best for you? Because I can tell you, many days it feels like it is a fight and a battle. So will this person that you want to appoint accept this high level of responsibility for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if that's what's necessary, right? So also when you're considering a person to appoint as medical power of attorney, just like the financial side, right? You got to look at, do they have any kind of healthcare experience or any kind of medical experience, which can be helpful. So there's also people called care managers. I was a care manager as well as a professional fiduciary. There are people that your medical agent can hire, just like, financial agents can hire CPAs and people like that, right? There are people called care managers and geriatric care managers that your agent under medical power of attorney can hire to help them if they feel like they're overwhelmed or they really don't know what's going on in a healthcare situation. There are experts out there that can be hired who can help. So again, MDPOA, very serious appointment, a lot of responsibilities. Medical power of attorney must be willing to learn about your healthcare history, if you're that agent, your medications, your physicians, how you've been hospitalized, what your preferences of care are, a lot of other information. Because without that history, how can they advocate for you in very serious situations if an accident happens? And I'll share a quick example. So I had a client who was living in a little personal care home, and I visited him one day, and he was just doing just great, right? So I leave, and the next day, the phone rings at my office, and they're saying, well, Mr. Smith, I'm not doing well today. We need a wheelchair. And I'm like, what do you mean you need a wheelchair? It was fine yesterday. I was walking. There was no problems. And so my staff's all excited. They're like, well, should we go order a wheelchair? And I'm like, no, let's do our due diligence here. Let's do our reasonable standards of care. So I called the care community. I'm like, okay, give me his temperature, his blood pressure, take his pulse oxygen level. Did he sleep last night? Did he eat? Has he gone to the bathroom? What's going on? And what I discovered was that he had a temperature and his blood pressure was low and he was just not feeling well. I'm like, send him to the emergency room. Something's wrong. So gets to the emergency room and he has pneumonia. No surprise, right? Things happen very quickly. So they put him in intensive care because he needs a lot of care. And the physician calls me and says, well, Pamela, oh, he's 95. He's had a good life. I think we should just not treat him and just let him, pass away naturally. I'm like, oh, doctor, I am his guardian. And I know that if he gets antibiotics, he's going to recover pretty quickly. And I know that that's what he would want. So I can't take your recommendation. And if I am forced to take your recommendation, then both of us will probably end up going to court to explain why he passed away because we had differing opinions. Do we really want to go there, or can we just give him antibiotics? So in the end, Mr. Jones got the antibiotics, recovered very quickly, lived another 5 years, right? There are situations where you've got to know enough about the person that you care for to know what they want and to be able to fight against doctors using your legal authority to do that. You have to do that. So, similar to the financial part, here are some starter questions for medical power of attorney. So, and again, I'll go back to having somebody who's a certified fiduciary is always an option because this becomes their job, right? To advocate and to negotiate and to do whatever it is, even though it may be time consuming, right? On the other hand, you can appoint a family member who's got medical or related experience or give them the power to hire, right, a fiduciary or a case manager. Again, same on the financial side. So questions to ask. Healthcare power of attorney can really become like a part-time job. Is this something that you're willing to do for me when I need it? What's your experience managing medical care? Have they been to doctor appointments? Have they been to hospital emergency rooms? Have they had to negotiate medications? Again, if it's a professional, ask for 3 references, talk to the references. Because choosing this person is so important. It's a life-affecting decision for you, both on the financial end and the healthcare end. So next question, is a family member the right choice? So we'll talk about some common family situations. Really, anybody over age 18 can serve as a power of attorney, but think of yourself back when you were 18. Could you have assumed that responsibility? Were you experienced enough financially and just in things of the world and being able to navigate conflict and difficult situations and advocate? Probably not. You probably need somebody who's got a little more life experience. Now, I will say that family members are traditionally the first choice to serve as power of attorney because it's easy, right? You got a child and you appoint them and that's that, right? However, I will say this trend is changing over time because children may not live in the same city that parents do. Professional fiduciaries are being appointed more often and more frequently for a whole host of reasons. Children live at a distance. Having somebody on the ground where you live can make a huge difference. Somebody that can run to the bank, run to the doctor's office, run to the hospital, come see you. And honestly, a power of attorney should attend medical appointments. Now, if you're 2,000 miles away, sometimes you can attend virtually or you can follow up with a phone call. But they also need to be able to show up at a hospital emergency room or send somebody to show up at a hospital emergency room. Attend medical care conferences when necessary. There's a lot of things that medical power of attorney really should do if they're providing good care. Again, children, if they are not responsible adults, don't consider them. They can't manage their own lives. How are they going to manage yours? Now, sometimes also parents don't want to wish to burden their children with this responsibility. So they choose professionals, or if there's concerns about children's ability to manage, choose somebody else. Believe it or not, I would have married couples choose me to be their power of attorney or choose me to be their guardian over their children for many of these reasons. Okay, you have to trust that your children are going to follow through and do what you want them to do. Can you trust them? Because honestly, there are few families are perfect. Every families have their issues, right? Children who don't get along, parents who favor one child over another, children who live in the basement because they can't hold down a job. All kinds of stuff goes on in families. A lot of jealousies exist. Grown children don't always get along. Families would come to my office embarrassed that they didn't get along or embarrassed to air what they called, family dirty laundry. This happens every day. It's not unusual. And it's important not to be embarrassed if your family members don't get along. It's just sometimes how life works out, even with the best of intentions. So the best situations, if all this craziness and drama happens, is where family members really can set aside their differences and say, okay, we're working for mom or dad's benefit, regardless of what I think or regardless of what you think. What's the right thing to do? If that's not possible, appointing an outside professional is the next best option, because a professional fiduciary appointment eliminates that possibility that a child who's appointed as an agent is going to act in ways that do not support the parent's best interest or their substituted judgment to protect their health, their property, their money. And if you are an adult child in a family situation where things are going wrong, let's say your siblings were appointed power of attorney and they're not being responsible, you can always petition the court to have someone else appointed. I know that battling within a family at the time that care is needed can be a really intimidating situation, and it can be a nightmare situation, but it can be done. So in the last webinar, I gave some family names, very public family names of disagreements. And so in this webinar, I'm going to quickly share those family names and what happened inside the families, which, may shock you. So first one, Glenn Campbell, singer. Your parents probably know him if you don't know him. He was a musical artist. He hosted a show called the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour from 1969 to 1972. So your parents probably watched this show. Believe it or not, there's episodes today here on YouTube. So relative to Glenn Campbell, did you know that music and songs are one of the last memories to go if you have a loved one who has Alzheimer's? A lot of times you can sing a song and they'll sing along and they'll remember all the words when they may not remember who you are or remember your name or remember what happened 5 seconds ago. They can sing with you. How many of you remember the song by Glenn Campbell, Galveston or Gentle on My Mind? Search for them on YouTube. They are here. And you can test this with yourself today. So how many times do you hear a song in the car maybe? And the song's from like 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. And you are just like clicking to the beat and you're singing along and you're happy. And it's like, oh my God, that song brings so many good memories to me. Alzheimer's is like that, right? You remember music. You don't remember anything else toward the end of the journey. And so in this issue, Glenn Campbell's family members were disagreeing about who should see him and who should have care. And so in all these situations, regular families and wealthy families, disagreements occur over money, property, costs of care. So again, when you consider who you're going to appoint, you got to think about who's going to do the best thing, who's going to do the right thing. A shocking one, Buzz Aldrin, who was an astronaut, okay, right? He was a subject of guardianship. He's the second person who set his feet on the moon. 2 of Aldrin's children and his business manager filed for guardianship in 2018, and he opposed the proceedings, saying that his children were more interested in his money and this shouldn't happen. His children were trying to say that he has Alzheimer's disease and he was incapacitated. He was not. This happens in all families, and it's important to understand it. Going back to Glenn Campbell, his second wife wanted to stop his children from visiting. This has happened in other families. I'll talk about Peter Falk in a minute. So the family had a very expensive legal battle, wasted a lot of money, that was ended with the Falk Act, supported by Catherine Falk, that I'll share in just a minute, confirming that, if children or people have a relationship with this person, they have a right to visit. People cannot stop that. So another one, Casey Kasem, America's Top 30 or 100 or whatever, all those songs, right? they were feuding over his fortune years after his death. There was concerns with like a first wife and a second wife and the children and how he died. He had Parkinson's disease. And there were arguments about money and elder abuse and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you even go back. This is probably a person only your parents may remember, or maybe you do if you're older, but Mickey Rooney, a big comedian, right? Story in the Hollywood Reporter about how during the last years of his life, he was subject to elder abuse by his eighth wife. Okay, I know, eighth wife, right? Probably not a good choice of women. And one of his sons. The Hollywood Reporter has like a, 30, 40-page story that you can read about this. And then one that probably most everybody, if you're a football fan, will know about is the Pat Boland family and that feud over who was going to control the Denver Broncos. Now, it's been resolved, but that was in the courts for years until it got resolved. And so all of these stories in the news about family disagreements and care, they happen. And they can serve as a reality check that this can happen in your family, even if you have a wonderful, loving family, right? Which is why, again, professional fiduciaries are becoming the choice of aging adults. Now, it's not to say that professional fiduciaries are perfect either. Professional fiduciaries, attorneys, they have all done bad things, just like people in general do bad things. There are good people out there and there are bad people, which is why you ask questions and you check references and you make sure that you are 1,000% comfortable with the person that you're appointing. So how do you know if a professional fiduciary is the right choice? We're an aging population, okay? So the fiduciary industry is growing. The number of people over age 65 is greater. It's going to double in the next, by 2060. And people are having fewer children. So there may be situations where you are a divorced person or you're a single person that never got married or you never had children. Who are you going to choose? Maybe a friend, maybe a professional fiduciary. And so kind of this burgeoning business, right? Individual. So I was a professional fiduciary. I had my own company and I did this from 2007 to 2018. I no longer do it, but I advise people about it, which are why I do these webinars and videos. But now attorney firms are taking note because they're seeing all these fiduciaries making money and they're like, wow, we could set up a little separate office and we could do that. But is that really a conflict of interest? Is the person who's doing your documents, should they be the person who manages your money at a much higher rate than a professional fiduciary would charge? And I can tell you that I've seen situations where attorneys have written themselves into the wills of wealthy clients to become their inheritors or to become their fiduciary. There's really a conflict of interest there. Again, good situations, bad situations, good people, bad people, all walks of life. Be very careful what you choose. So in my opinion, it's best to keep what I call the three-legged stool separate. You keep the legal separate from the healthcare, separate from the financial. Some people have actually appointed their financial planners illegally, right? Because financial planners cannot accept those appointments, to be their power of attorney because they didn't have anybody else. Again, you got to keep all of those specialties separate so that you are as protected as possible. It's kind of like having your divorce attorney draft your power of attorney documents. They have no experience doing that. Don't do that. Don't have a family friend who's an attorney draft your documents. As much as you possibly can, use professionals who are experienced and vetted and that you have checked out. Because doing this then can allow oversight and questioning if actions are inappropriate. It's just a smart thing to do. So professionals have designations that you can also check. So I am a certified senior advisor. I'm also a certified guardian. It's important to check people's education, their certifications, number of years they've been in business, the number of clients. In the best case scenario, find professionals who own a company and have staff and who've done this for a number of years. Again, college education, affiliations with healthcare and financial organizations, legal organizations. It makes a difference. People who are fiduciaries in the National Guardianship Association. Important. Certified senior advisors. There are plenty of designations for financial planners, certified financial planners, chartered financial consultants, chartered financial analysts, chartered investment counselors. They have to do a lot to achieve these certifications. So don't just choose somebody who's a CPA or who doesn't have an advanced designation. because they may not have your best interest at heart. They really have to understand what they're doing. And so you want to avoid these conflicts of interest. Now, states, again, have standards and guidelines for fiduciaries. Some states do, some states do not, which is why the national designations are even more important, especially if your fiduciary works in a state where there's no oversight. Because there has to be oversight about monies, about healthcare decisions. All of that should be documented and shared with you, the client, or shared with somebody that you list to provide oversight. Again, funds, money, everything done for the benefit of the principal. Nobody uses that money for something else. Nobody takes vacations. Nobody makes a medical decision so that the person dies faster so that their kids inherit money. No, 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 no. So again, you find these people through recommendations. You find them through the National Guardianship website. So that concludes this webinar. So I'm Pamela D Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert with over 20 years of experience as a professional fiduciary. Please like these videos, follow my YouTube channel, and comment below so that you help more people find help and find these videos on very important topics about managing your life and managing your care, especially at the end of life. If you have questions or comments, please post them below. I respond to every comment. You can also join my private Facebook group. It is called The Caregiving Trap, where you can learn from other caregivers in similar situations. You can also go to my website. It is PamelaDWilson.com, link below. You can complete a form on my contact page and request a personal consultation. I'm sending you all love, light, health, hope, lots of hope, until we see each other in the next webinar in this series or in another video on my website or my YouTube channel. Have a fabulous day.